Bloomberg understands that Russia says it will only agree to security guarantees for Ukraine that give Moscow an effective veto over any future effort to defend Kyiv. For more, Tony Halpin, who leads our Russia economy and government coverage, joins me now. Tony, how can you have a security guarantee for Ukraine that Moscow might veto if Moscow is the aggressor?
Yes, this is one of the many unanswered questions that are being hashed out at the moment, because essentially the idea of security guarantees for Ukraine is, as you say, Tom, against Russia. And if Russia wants some say in that, then there's some question mark over whether it amounts to any kind of security for Ukraine. Europeans are still trying to work out some sort of idea around something called a NATO light assurance, which would give Ukraine some sort of military assistance and military commitment if it were to be attacked again. But the details there are still very vague, and there's a lot of discussion to be had, I think.
What do we understand from listening to the Russian foreign minister with so much experience and so much time in the field, Mr. Lavrov, about Russia's current position, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, essentially Russia is standing firm on what it wants, partly because it sees that this has been pretty successful so far. If you recall, on Friday's summit, President Trump went quite a long way towards the Russian position, basically accepting that Russia needs to get some Ukrainian territory as part of any settlement, basically accepting that there doesn't need to be a ceasefire before talks begin, and essentially that allows also the US to hold off from applying further sanctions. So Russia sees all of this, and it decides that actually playing hardball produces results, and this is the kind of thing that we end up with, that Russia saying, well, fine, you want to talk about security guarantees, here's what we want from it, you better give it to us.
What about this much-touted meeting between Putin and Zelensky? What have the Russians been saying in terms of their potential willingness or not to have that meeting?
Yeah, they're somewhat lukewarm on this. They have committed, publicly at least, to increasing the level of official taking part in the direct talks between Ukraine and Russia from the current fairly low level on the Russian side. But that's very far from committing to Putin sitting down at a table with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky. The Kremlin's position has always been essentially that Putin will sit down with Zelensky at some point, but that will only be if there's an agreement on the table for them to sign, and both sides are still very far away from that. So it looks like Russia is not very enthusiastic about a bilateral summit, whatever it is that President Trump says was agreed. So far, at least publicly, the Kremlin isn't playing ball there.